Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to the breakdown. Today we're going to show you how to make a YouTube thumbnail, a professional YouTube thumbnail in Photoshop. It's actually really simple. There aren't many elements to creating a good thumbnail because design is typically simple. Well, good design is typically simple. So what we're going to do is quickly recreate the thumbnails that we use for the breakdowns videos, which entails this black box over here, a quick Apple logo down in the bottom corner, which would be for Mac related videos, and a text box and a place where you can put a logo if there's a Minecraft video or a specific type of video that you're doing. So the first thing you need to know is that the typical YouTube thumbnail size is 1920 by 1080. So we'll go ahead and open up a document and create a 1920 by 1080 document with a resolution of 72 pixels per inch in a color mode of RGB 8-bit. Click OK. It's going to bring up this document for you here, and we're just going to go ahead and jump in and create a new layer, which we're going to name the black box. And then we're going to come over to either our shape tool or the marquee tool, whichever one you typically use. Typically when I make a selection in Photoshop, I just use the marquee tool, and then you can just go ahead, hit D on your keyboard and hit Option or Alt and Delete or Backspace, depending on if you're on a Mac or a PC. Then once you have that, you can come over here, double click it, go into color overlay, and from here you can change the color of the black box. So for this we'll just do 1A, 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 click OK, and then what we can do is go ahead and duplicate this layer, and we'll call this the shadow, and then we'll drag this layer below the black box layer, and then select the layer, hit V on your keyboard to select the move tool, hold shift and arrow over to the right about 5 times. So that's actually a bit too much, so we're going to go back 3 times, so it would just be arrowing over 2 times. And then what we can do, click on the overlay, turn off the color overlay, select a gradient overlay, and we can select a gradient to be the shadow of the box. So in this case I'm just going to leave it on the gradient that it's on right now. Click OK, and then we have that finished. I'm actually going to move this over one more, so we'll just move it in one more, holding shift and hitting the left arrow key, and it just leaves a little thin line over to the side. So the next thing we need to do is find a background that will fit over here in this image. So to do that, open up your web browser and then open a new tab, and then simply go to unsplash.com. Unsplash is a great place where you can find royalty-free images to use in blog posts, YouTube videos, anything like that, just so long as you give credit. So in this case, we're just going to type in office and get a cool picture of an office setup to use as our background image. In this case, I really like this image right here. So we'll click on this, hit download, and it will download to your downloads folder if you're on a Mac, or wherever else you have it set to if you're using Windows. So we'll just close out of the preview window before it opens, or while it opens. Close out of that tab, and then we can take the image wherever it is and we can just drag it into Photoshop. So in this case it auto-sized it for us. We can just go ahead and click return or enter on our keyboard and then drag it all the way to the bottom, and then as you can see that overlay sits on top of it. We'll actually go ahead and flip this image because there's a huge black piece over here, so we'll just go to edit, transform, and flip horizontal, and then as you can see that clears that up. I'll also resize the image so that black box goes away a little bit more, and then just hit return on the keyboard. And now what we can do is unlock the background layer just by double clicking on it, and then hit OK, drag it above this layer, and then go to our bucket tool or our fill tool, and then just press on the white layer and then take the opacity down to about 10%, and as you can see that leaves a nice darker effect over the image to make sure that the text is more visible. So coming back over here, as you can see we have the breakdown logo over here. If you have a channel logo, you can add that there. If there's a certain game that you're playing, such as The Sims, you could put the Sims logo there. Nevertheless, I'm just going to add the breakdowns logo over there. So I'm just going to take the logo, drag it onto that document, and then resize it to where it will fit over there. By holding the Alt and Shift key, you can resize it as a perfect square. Looks like I need to move it up a layer, so I'll hit enter and drag it to the very top. Hit V on my keyboard to resize it again, and as you can see it is now centered in the box. We'll just hit enter to confirm the changes, and the breakdown logo is now over there, which would represent your logo. So now let's say you were making a tutorial based on Final Cut. What you could do is open up your browser and then go to Google Images by going to images.google.com, and then once you're there, just type in Final Cut Pro 10 logo, and then click on settings, or tools rather, click on size and hit large. So I'm going to select this image, click on view image, and then just drag this to my desktop, minimize that, and drag this into Photoshop. Then we can resize this logo and put it somewhere in here to show that we're doing a Final Cut Pro logo, or a Final Cut Pro tutorial or video. So we'll just leave that centered there, and now we'll go ahead and make this box outline for the video. To do that, just grab a shape tool, draw out a shape in Photoshop, and then as you can see, you have a shape drawn out for the box. What you need to do now is color it the way that you want it to be colored. So we'll just take gradient tool, we'll select a linear gradient, and then we'll just select something like this, and then we can go ahead and add a stroke around it, and we'll choose a bluish color from the breakdown logo, which you can do by just selecting on that. Click OK to confirm the changes, and then you can go ahead and center this in the document. To do that, I recommend getting your marquee tool by hitting M and then drawing out a square or a rectangle around this part of the image. Hit V on your keyboard, make sure the rectangle is selected, and then come up here and hit that, and it should center it on the page. Go ahead and hit Control or Command D to deselect the selection, and then you can go ahead and grab your text tool and type out Final Cut Tutorial, and then you can resize your text to make it fit within the box. So we'll just go ahead and drag this out in here. I misspelled final. And then once again, we can hold Command or Control, click on the rectangle, it'll make a selection around that, and then hit B on your keyboard and center it in the square. Once again, I misspelled final. I'll get it. So now the last thing we need to do is add this little Apple logo down here. You could also do a Windows logo if you're doing Windows-based video. However, since this is a Final Cut tutorial, it just makes sense to add a nice little Apple logo down there. So what we can do is go back to our browser, go to images.google.com, and then type in Apple logo. It's going to give you a whole bunch of options. We'll just click on this first one here, then click on View Image. It's going to take us off to a different page and actually just go ahead and download the image, which works perfectly fine. Minimize that, and then we'll come back into Photoshop, and before we add this image, we'll go ahead and select our shape tool, and then we will draw out a white shape just so we can see what we're doing. And we'll just draw out a perfect square by holding Shift. Hit V on your keyboard and hold Shift until you reach a 45-degree angle. Come over here and make sure it lines up on the edge of this corner right here and this corner here. And you can go ahead and resize it to make it a little bit larger by holding Shift and then just recentering it on that. Hit Enter to confirm the changes, and now drag it below the shadow box. And as you can see, we have something very similar to that. Now what we can do is go ahead and take the Apple logo, which it put in our downloads folder, drag it into this image, hit OK. Then what you want to do is go to your eraser tool, select your magic eraser tool, and click on the layer. It's going to ask if you want to rasterize the object. Yes, that's perfectly fine. And then you can go ahead and resize this logo to fit within this box right here. It's a little hard to center this up because it is a rectangle that was turned into a triangle, but that's perfectly fine. We can go ahead and make it look as good as possible. Hit Enter on your keyboard to confirm the changes, and as you can see here, it's transparent in this image. To do that, you would select your Apple logo by holding Command or Control, clicking on the logo, and then coming to the rectangle that you made the triangle. So click on this and then hit Delete or Backspace on your keyboard. If you get that error, what you need to do is right click and then hit Rasterize Layer. It's going to rasterize the layer, and then once again with that layer selected, hit Delete or Backspace on your keyboard, and then you can turn off the Apple logo, and as you can see, it has made that completely transparent. So there you go, guys. That is how you create a thumbnail for YouTube in Photoshop. Obviously, you can make the text look different. You can make this box look different. You can end up tweaking it to where it has that triangle on the end of it, which you would do by just creating a triangle and adding it to the end of that. But to keep it simple, to keep it smooth and flowing well. I just decided to leave it like that. If you guys have any questions, please leave them down in the comment section below. And if you have any future suggestions for Photoshop tutorials, leave those down below as well. Nevertheless, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a thumbs up and let us know that you enjoyed it. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.